This is the first video in my life where I've had to do some field research. I've been going to every person I know and been asking them if they've ever seen Hellraiser. Usually, each one of them goes, never heard of it, and I reply, that's what Pinhead is from, and they go, oh. I'm sure all of the pure-blooded Olympians will now rush down to the comments section and say, me, I was the guy who saw Hellraiser, and then the chaff must be separated from the wheat as we find out that most of those people saw it in the past month for Dead by Daylight. Also, yes, I did ask old people. I said when Nemesis came out that there would never ever be anything more hype than him, and I'm sticking to my guns that I'm right about that. I'm sure if you asked people about the story wherein which a magical artifact in the shape of a puzzle ends up in the hands of a normal person, and upon its solving it summons a person from the realm of the dead with an insane leather obsession, they're more liable to think of fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! Before Hellraiser. Not to say it wasn't a big deal for its time, or it hasn't had some effect on horror since then, but this is more of a B+ license. Does this even matter, though? Does a character really need to earn the prestiged right to a buggy PTB? It doesn't matter if Pinhead was some modern pop sensation to be represented, or if he's some forgotten street urchin to be made into a star. Also, we're taking this footage off the PTB, so wave your hand and go, well, everything he said is probably useless. Also, look, he loaned footage again. I did play on the PTB, okay? Here's proof.
I'm gonna fucking be here forever.
Pinhead's powers are based on chains and hooks. This could have been the Chains of Hate chapter if you pronounced it with a soothing moan at the end. Although maybe the most unsexy thing on earth is this description that reads like a terms of service agreement. But don't worry, I'm here to save you. Pinhead can channel a little portal in front of him from which he can transport his view, then fire out a controllable chain. Better keep GameSpot away from this one. If that chain hits the survivor, it will quickly summon 3 other chains from a handful of portals that will latch onto them. Those chains slow them down and can halt some actions, but the hard thing I learned is that they break if they connect with the environment, like Hell outsources to Great Value. The main Pinhead gameplay is just to hit as many of these as you can while also being mindful of nearby walls, otherwise they'll be wasted. And even without a little wall, it only takes a few seconds to slice it open with their membership card. You'll run into a few situations where channeling the chain will take more time than it does for the survivor to escape it. Overall, Pinhead is a lot like Nurse mixed with Clown. Oh, put that on the bingo card. The fact that 50% of his power goes through walls is a blessing on indoor maps. However, the other 50% not going through walls means that indoor maps are the worst. And wait, there's another 50% of his power. Ah, shit, I did it again. When Pinhead is in the match, a little group timer appears around the survivor icons, which gradually ticks down and forfeits all subtlety. Once this meter is full, it'll start what's called a chain hunt, where the chains will basically turn into Birdemic and constantly harass everyone. It's not very strong during a chase, but you'll be gritting your teeth while doing any objective. Every time you're hit with a chain, you have to break out of it in a brief little interaction. It's not impossible, however, you'll pay for it with an extra minute on that gen and 500 extra dirty looks from 4 other people. At every moment during the match, there is a copy of the Millennium Puzzle on the floor, and whenever someone grabs it, the timer resets. The catch is that once the survivor picks it up, they can't put it down without solving it, and without putting it down, they can't do objectives or hear the killer's heartbeat. They need to do a brief interaction to get rid of it. The brief second reveals their position and allows Pinhead to do a special teleport towards them. The catch for this is that if Pinhead gets the box before them, he'll flip over his trap card that briefly locks every survivor in place, gives you their location, and starts the chain hunt. But you might as well keep fucking dreaming, as Pinhead has no way of knowing where the box is. He can get it if he downs the survivor that has it, but using the teleport will cause someone to lean on the remote and just fast forward the box solving interaction. In the real world, there's only 2 ways for Pinhead to get his hands on this. Either he will just sort of find it in between the couch cushions, or the person solving the box is really close and doesn't know it. I think killers will learn the hard way to not use the teleport button. They probably just want you to watch them teabag in a corner with 0 hooks and a photo of them making out with your mom. Plus, odds are good there will be a wall between the 2 of you just for a little bit of added flavor. While I am talking about the survivors being the worst, they might also dodge your hook by jumping into a locker, because that trusty piece of cardboard would counter everything in the game if it wasn't already a stupid idea. Because this chapter only added 1 killer, because I need to be wrong about everything, the only other thing being added into DBD is his perks, with the tease of the mid-chapter patch being his survivor counterpart, which is an interesting new strategy. 1 killer is lame, but if they add something every month and a half, perhaps that's better. Maybe this situation where behavior just carefully inserts the Jenga block is superior to them suplexing the whole tower. Under that kind of reign, we'll never have a Binding of Kin or Resident Evil ever again. As I read this first perk out, imagine you are Dead Man's Switch. You see, Pinhead is a man of pleasure, and there is no doubt that he dabbles in a little bit of cuckoldry. Deadlocked activates every time a generator is finished, and blocks the generator with the most amount of progress on the map for 30 seconds. It also kicks everyone off that generator. allowing you to slow down the match and find out which objectives to prioritize. I have hope that this will be a new perk that appears in builds without needing to summon Assault Circle, and obviously I'll hate it once it does, but if each game is a 50-50 between this and Corrupt Intervention, then I'll consider it a win. The next perk is Hex Plaything. Every time you hook someone for the first time, a Hex Totem is created just for that survivor. For a minute or two, only they can interact with that totem. Until that Hex is broken, they have to contend with the Oblivious status effect. Their only saving grace is that they can sense the totem when they get within 12 meters of it. Unless, I would recommend this on Pig. I can't go back and redo my video on her, but tying people's shoes while they try to remove a trap can be all sorts of chaotic. In fact, I'd even say that this is a good fucking perk. It gives a pretty demanding task that has a lengthy solution. Then, finally, the last perk is Scourge Hook, Gift of Pain. This replaces 4 of your hooks with Scourge Hooks. A survivor placed on this is debuffed after being saved. They'll be mangled and bleed more. Once healed, they'll suffer a 9% speed decrease in repairing and healing. Based on the way the title is worded, though, this might be a new brand of perk, and we'll start to see Scourge Hooks that just outright kill you for fun. This is the one that I'm the most excited to start taping to other characters, but only because it's a slowdown perk that doesn't leave a bad taste in my mouth. The smoky aesthetic looks cool, and it's rad to incentivize more with hooks that isn't just the basement. Hell, the only other perk like this is Monstrous Shrine, and everyone agreed that one sucks, so maybe both of you will get buffed, right? Right? Speaking of perks, let's talk about some of the ones that I think Pinhead works especially great with. Pinhead gets to live the quiet life of an M1 killer. In English, that means he can only deal damage with his basic strike, allowing you to get all the benefits of perks that only respond to basic attacks. But for the first one, I want to recommend something a little stupid. Pinhead's chains, being as flimsy as they are, it'll be for the best to take along either Brutal Strength, Bamboozle, or Fire Up to give yourself a stronger chase. In a lot of moments, you'll have someone pinned, but you gotta break or vault something to get to them. Personally, I'm going to pick Fire Up to do both at the same time. Deathbound triggers after survivors heal, forcing them to stick together, or the person who did the healing will become oblivious for 45 seconds. This combos into Pinhead's powers, as survivors will constantly be separating after healing to make sure someone gets the box. Also, yes, because of the Lament, Ruin is quite good too, I just don't want to admit it. One of the problems of me serving up this humble platter of neat perks is that most of this community doesn't own every killer, and it's something Behavior really ought to consider too. Every new killer you add in gatekeeps the perks, and the experiments you do are bound to get hidden away. So this dish is a little more rustic. Hex Thrill of the Hunt. One of Pinhead's greatest strengths is that he can pretty much monitor a location without having to be there. Thrill will cause a notification when someone hops on a hex. You might say, well, Undying does the same thing but better, but that isn't why I'm suggesting Thrill. I'm suggesting Thrill because it also doubles the time it takes to break the totems. This would probably go hand in hand with things like Hoarder, but chests don't lose their progress when you knock someone off them. See, Pinhead's biggest weakness is that the chains don't normally deal damage, and a lot of the interactions save their progress when interrupted. But if you get notified by Thrill of the Hunt, you can interrupt the fairly lengthy totem break by just nicking them. Helped by the fact that if you put on Hex Plaything, the survivors will have to cleanse every totem on the map, and they're constantly running on the heels of that Lament timer. If you're insane, you can muscle through a generator while the hooks are coming, but only somebody with a savior body blocking for them will be able to break totems. This is probably best paired with his 2 add-ons that increase the distance at which you can channel a portal. This will let you patrol all over the map and knock them off your objectives at a moment's notice. First red add-on is a Fang that lets you deal damage with your possessed chain, but only from healthy to injured. You're incapable of downing people. I think that really speaks for itself, but the second one, the Iridescent Millennium Puzzle, well, it's the first time in a decent while where I read the description and said, wow, that sounds overpowered. The red Lament hides its aura unless the survivor is either 16 meters away or the chain hunt has activated. This gives you the advantage in that the chain hunt is almost guaranteed to start. And I feel like once survivors compile everything from this PTB into their databanks, you won't be seeing the timer complete a whole lot. The box is always visible to them, and if they want, they can just troll you by running around with it while laughing their asses off. Speaking of trolling, I can't believe I watched that whole Hellraiser movie only for the guy to show up in the last 30 minutes in 2 scenes. Yes, I am, chaff. I watched it last night. I think some people are still mad about what I said in the opening, so let me preface it like this. I was ready to rail on Pinhead because I had barely ever heard of his movies, which wasn't helped when I heard that his last film was possibly shot out with a budget like mine and the same amount of effort, not because there was misplaced love, but because the guy who owns the movies needs to create movies or he loses the licenses. But the more I thought about it, half of these licenses are not good franchises. If I said the first movie was good and then the series fell apart, which one am I describing? I only gave Freddy Krueger some room because I was 10 when he scared me on fucking Newgrounds. The only ones that are still making good content are Resident Evil, Stranger Things, and maybe the new Saw movie. Which brings me to the question of licenses and what something needs to achieve horror icon status. And then, after mulling over my totalitarian guidelines, I realized that it's different to each person and that isn't worth fighting for. Maybe DBD isn't licensing these guys as much as it is parasitizing them all together. If you look for Cheryl Mason fan art, it's all under hashtag Dead by Daylight. You could see it as DBD breathing new life into these characters, but maybe also behavior has been playing for keeps. Perhaps the next Pinhead movie won't be a gambit so that some corpo can keep the rights to him. Maybe Dead by Daylight will grab some B-plus director and one semi-notable actor, then announce a movie that no one will hear about for 5+ years, culminating in the moment where we watch it, and Detective Tapp will pretend to be a part of the entity's realm all along. Go, Stranger Things, go! Get out while you can!